This is Sleep Fader, where mindfulness, music, stories, and sound design come together to remix your inner dialogue, bring down the stress levels, and dial in your best sleep. Each episode is an original blend of mindful moments, music, and soundscapes, all rolled into a continuous story that evolves with every episode. And with that, welcome back. Whether you're here for the first time or returning again, thanks for meeting me here in the lounge, where I'll keep things conversational for a little while you do what you need to do to get comfortable. We don't rush into things here. I hope you'll consider a couple of easy ways to help keep this show going. However you're listening, if this show is helping you rest, please find that subscribe button and give it a tap. And visit sleepfader.com, where you can help with a donation or by sending me your feedback. If you have been here before, then you know that part of what I'm doing each time is telling a story. But here's the thing. You really don't need to catch every detail or even follow a plot, in so much that you trust that I know where this story is going. In fact, if you fall asleep at any point in the narration, well, that's the idea. There's no fear of missing out because all we're really doing here is slipping into characters and places that will, with each listen, become more familiar, just as easily as we slip under our blankets, like actors dropping into a scene and allowing our character's experience to color and affect our own. It's the same with music. Instead of characters, we slip into grooves, melodies, and chord progressions. For both the player and the listener, there's a trying on of different colors to see how they feel. It's still storytelling, if you ask me, with or without the words. I want to share a thought on chords and how they work. And I don't think you need to be a musician to relate to this. Chords are built around what we call the root note, which you can think of as the center of the chord, the tone around which all the other notes in a chord sort of orbit. Now, the relationship of those notes to the root is more or less dictated by their distance from it, what we hear as different pitches. That distance is measured in intervals, and different music systems around the world have different variations on the rules. Anyway, those surrounding notes, based on their relationship to the root, can create emotional reactions in us, which is really incredible. They can create feelings of balance, or wholeness, or a sense of tension, or mystery, simply by virtue of their relationship, their distance, you might say, their perspective, relative to the root tone. In this same way, especially noticeable when we're quiet and still, our thoughts pass through and over each other. And in the movement from one to the other, and in the spaces between, we find feelings of both resolution and dissonance, wholeness and doubt. Our distance from those orbiting thoughts, our relationship with them, our perspective, can frame our emotional reactions as well. And even though our view from the center has a way of changing its perspective, we can, when we notice them, allow for all of those surrounding notes and for the emotions and sensations that come with them, knowing that the root, our center, it's still there, with no need to resist or reject those thoughts or feelings, any more than we need to resist chords or notes passing by. Alright, I think we're ready to make a transition now. Back into our story. And back into character, where just lately, some curious coincidences have come to light. Come, have a seat. No need to buy a ticket. The train has already left the station. The landscape slips past the window. Hillsides, scattered buildings, and long sloping power and telephone lines, silhouetted by the deepening colors of the sky, gently rising and falling, keeping time with the wheels on the tracks. It's otherwise quiet on this train, and with no seasonal tourists crowding the seats and aisles, passengers are free to spread out comfortably. I've found a window seat at one of the cozier spots on this train, where two pairs of seats face each other across a narrow table, upon which my favorite travel mug now rests. It's filled with a creamy chai tea, warmed to the perfect temperature. My travel bag on the seat next to me contains everything I need for a comfortable overnight trip. A change of clothes, an extra layer in case the evening turns cool, small bottles of my usual soap and shampoo, an old paperback book, well worn and read many times over, a pair of headphones. It isn't a very long ride, but then time passes differently when we're moving, especially when traveling alone. The mind tends to wander when riding a train at night, settling on ordinary details that somehow provoke odd introspections and occasional imaginative flights. I often conjure entire worlds and realities for my fellow passengers. It's what people watchers do, and a fine way to pass the time. Right now, across the table, a boy of 6 or so kneels on his seat, leaning close to the long window. He takes a deep breath and exhales dramatically onto the glass where, magically, a steamy canvas appears, perfect for finger drawing. He pauses briefly, and in this moment, immediately preceding artistic expression, I wonder what he'll be inspired to draw. With great concentration and care, the boy makes a somewhat lopsided circle. Then, 2 triangles on top. With 2 quick taps for eyes, a face is suggested. A smaller triangle points downward and into a curving W shape, from which great, long whiskers now sprout from either side. A single, blunt fang juts out of this friendly muzzle. It's a lion, or some kind of cat anyway. The boy considers his work, then leans forward again, aligning his nose against the glass, so he can peer directly through the cat's eyes and into the world speeding by. He rocks back and forth on his knees, to the rhythm of the tracks, or maybe to a made-up melody only he can hear. After a while, with no apparent regret, the boy uses a small fist to wipe his creation away, settles back down into his chair, and rests his head against his mother, who, in the chair next to his, has already nodded off. Considering recent events, it wouldn't have been all that surprising if, instead of the lion. The boy had drawn something more familiar. Say, the figure of a woman in a sun hat, and her young daughter walking along a beach. But there's some understandable relief in things unfolding more naturally tonight. Just a relaxing train ride, with no odd coincidences so far. Also in my travel bag, folded carefully and tucked into an inside pocket, is a drawing, quietly rustling with unanswered questions. Was it left behind intentionally for me to find? If so, who was the artist? And what about the woman and her daughter on the beach, sketched so perfectly onto the textured paper? These curiosities are companionable in their way, like the onyx guitar pick in my pocket, whose faint outline I can feel now, humming muffled riddles through the fabric. If there's any real connection between the otherworldly plectrum, the woman and child on the beach, or the artist's rendering, I may never know. Or I may find out in due time. But for now, I can allow this mystery to rest in place, like the well-worn paperback in my bag, which was really only a mystery the first time through. And with every read since has been less about solving riddles and more about noticing details and nuances that were missed the last time around. For now, I'll leave the book where it is too, content to watch through the window as twilight finally succumbs to the shade of night. Inside the cabin, lights are dimmed, while outside, distant street lamps flicker on and are then swept away out of the field of view. Shop awnings and windows illuminate, glowing with the inviting colors of coffee shops and bodegas, restaurants and bars, abstract vignettes coming and going, in and out of focus. None are exactly alike, but there is a sense of repetition, a loop of transient still life frames, of safe havens and comforting promises drifting by, as my fellow passengers and I are carried through and around the outer suburbs and into the waiting city. The urgent momentum of the train contrasts the stillness just beyond the tracks, in the barren passages between the rails and the roads, where low concrete buildings hunker for the night, and tall chain-link fences guard against trespass. Maintenance trucks are lined up, sleeping giants in vast blacktop lots, watched over by arc lamp sentries. And now, taller structures begin to obscure the view. Municipal buildings, factories converted into high-end condominiums, modern offices towering over brightly lit commercial zones. Scattered raindrops kiss the window, catching these reflected colors, leaving glowing trails as they're whisked away. As the train decelerates, the boy and his mother begin to stir, yawning, stretching, and gathering their few belongings. A Blue's Clues backpack for him, a knockoff Gucci handbag for her, and from under the table, a flat rectangular object, about 12 inches by 20 or so, wrapped in burlap cloth and tied with twine. A paper tag hangs from the package. Written on the tag in bright red ink is a lowercase letter M and the number 7. An old man wearing a long tan overcoat, a tattered briefcase clutched over his lap, sits nearest to the exit. With a sigh of finality, the train eases into temporary stasis. And the old man rises slowly as the interior lights brighten again. The boy and his mother scoot out from behind the table. The few others in the car retrieve luggage from the upper racks, some talking to each other, others speaking into their phones, while a conductor leans out of the open exit, chatting warmly with a colleague who stands on the platform below. I stand as well, my body gradually reorienting to being at rest, now that the train's momentum has ceased. Following behind the boy and his mother, I patiently make my way toward the exit. Umbrellas are fetched out of bags and raised as passengers take their leave. The rain outside has picked up. Carefully stepping down onto the platform, I sling my bag over my shoulder. The damp night air fills my nose, and raindrops light on my jacket. This is fine. Street lamps shine down yellow from above, reflected in rippling puddles below. Just shy of one of the larger puddles Lying on the sidewalk is the paper tag from the burlap and twine-wrapped package. It must have fallen, come detached when the mother and son disembarked. I bend over and pick it up. The red ink has smeared a little from the wet. Lowercase m, the number 7. On the flip side of the tag, a short inscription. Minor 7. A curiosity shop. Open 24 hours. The tag is tucked safely into the paperback and into my bag, and I begin to walk. Now and then, a vehicle passing by. A taxi and its tired-looking driver. A lumbering city bus, its interior lights revealing a lone passenger. An old woman resting her chin atop her hands, which clasp a gnarled wooden cane. A low, heavy car with luxy tires and dark tinted windows glides around a corner. Its motor purring quietly, growing quieter and quieter until only the gentle rainfall and the soles of my shoes fill the night silence.